Hey, Seth David here from the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, and in this edition of Nerd's Guide to the Galaxy, we're talking about how to get bookkeeping clients. Now, I've worked with accountants and bookkeepers for probably the past 10 or even more years out of the 20-some-odd years I've been doing this. And in that time, I've had the chance to work with many, many bookkeepers who have asked me many, many questions. And obviously, one of the more common questions, especially for those starting out, is how do I get bookkeeping clients? Now, as varied as the bookkeepers I've worked with are, their experience with respect to how to get bookkeeping clients seems to be varied. In other words, some people that I've talked to and work with, they have more than they know what to do with as far as getting referrals from people. And then there are others who seem to just constantly struggle getting clients, getting bookkeeping clients. So, of course, the question arises in my mind, what's the difference? What are they doing differently? One person who comes to mind, I'm not going to mention names, of course, because I haven't asked permission, but one person joined a networking group, but unlike what many accountants and bookkeepers do, as much as I'm a big fan, obviously, of networking groups that are comprised of other accountants and bookkeepers, such as my 97 and up program, one of these people that comes to mind who was like sort of the most pronounced, like she was flooded with referrals, like turned people away constantly. She joined a networking group that was comprised of all different kinds of business owners. So what do you think happened? She got referrals from them. Even if they themselves didn't need her help, they knew people who did. So that's something that comes to mind. But I want to break this down a little more slowly and a little more sort of comprehensively as far as helping you understand what the difference is and what you might be able to do in terms of how you can get more bookkeeping clients. So let's look at first what might help you get more referrals from existing clients, right? Because that's normally, once you get your first few clients, assuming you do a really good job, that's your best opportunity to get referrals is from existing clients who are very, very happy. Now, here's one idea that you can employ, that you can put to use right away that won't cost you a dime, is assuming you have your first client, maybe you have 2 or 3, but you're just not getting a whole lot of new ones, have a meeting with your new clients, and in that first meeting or one of the first meetings, I want you to ask them this question. I want you to ask them to consider this. Say, hey, imagine a year from now we've been working together consistently and I've been helping you along. What does success look like for you? In other words, what do you hope to accomplish with me between now and 1 year from now? And then basically take the cotton out of your ears, put it in your mouth, and take as many notes as you can, because what you're about to get from that client is the exact roadmap for how they would define a successful relationship with you. And you want to take notes because then you want to outline how you're going to accomplish those things. And then make a note to schedule a follow-up call in about a year. And hopefully by that time you can look over those notes that you made and share with the client and say, okay, it's a year later. Here's what you told me a year ago you wanted to accomplish. And here's how we've accomplished each of these things, right? So you kind of prove to them, hey, I've accomplished that. And now you say, okay, so let's raise the bar. Let's go out another year. And what would you like to accomplish, in the next year? And again, cotton out of your ears into your mouth. Take copious notes. Make sure that you don't miss a thing in terms of the roadmap that they're giving you because you've asked them to for how to achieve what they hope to achieve with you. The reality is most clients will find this incredibly refreshing because nobody takes the time or even thinks to do it. And yet it's exactly what they want. I can't tell you how many small business owner clients have come in my door over the years frustrated with their former bookkeeper or accountant because they didn't do stuff like this, because they didn't take the time to find out exactly how their own client defines success, right? So ask them that question, get that answer, make the notes, then lay out the plan for how you're going to accomplish what they've asked you to. Now, the next tip is about networking with other accounting professionals. So earlier I said, I mentioned somebody who had a lot of success because she joined a networking group that consisted not of other accounting professionals, but lots of business owners. Now I want to talk about the flip side of that. What are the benefits? How can you get more bookkeeping clients with respect to joining a network of other like-minded accounting professionals? For example, in my 97 and up group, I have a referrals channel in Slack. And where this comes up and becomes very, very useful is that, let's say I specialize in a niche like e-commerce, right? And I become known as the guy who does e-commerce and uses QuickBooks Online to do it, right? That's why in a recent video I did on how to go from bookkeeping side hustle to bookkeeping practice, I talked about that part of picking a niche may also include picking one very specific accounting software so that the combination of your accounting software and your niche becomes how you're defined in terms of your expertise and what you are the expert at. QuickBooks Online for e-commerce companies, right? So if you become that person among a group of accountants and bookkeepers who's known for that specific combination of skills, there are going to be a lot of other accountants and bookkeepers in that group who have no interest in doing that, have no experience with it, nor do they want to learn. So when they get referrals from people who are looking for help with an e-commerce company, you're the one that's going to be top of mind. They're going to think of you. And so this is how you can generate referrals from networking groups that do consist entirely of other accounting and bookkeeping professionals, is really honing in on your specialization. And like I said, couple the specializations with not just the niche, but also the accounting software. So you're the person who does bookkeeping for e-commerce companies with QuickBooks Online. There may be somebody else who does bookkeeping for e-commerce companies with Xero, right? Great. You're going to get the referrals from people who have a prospect who is looking for help with an e-commerce company and either is or wants to use QuickBooks Online. Now let's talk about staying in touch with those other accounting professionals. Now it could be in a networking group. It could just be less formally, just emailing, maybe you've met a local CPA in your area who also doesn't want to deal with the bookkeeping or doesn't want to deal with that particular niche or industry. So again, they'll refer you clients who they know you're the expert in the, in the right areas for. But to steal something from my friend John Ferraro, who's the CEO of Nimble CRM, he's often said, it's a quote from somebody named Mae West, and the quote is, "Out of sight is out of mind, and out of mind is out of money, honey." And what it means is, people are going to forget about you. Don't assume that, don't sit around and wait and assume that they're just going to be waiting for the right referral to drop in and reach out and call you. They're up to their eyeballs, right? Most accounting professionals that I know are up to their eyeballs. So it's really up to you to keep in touch with them. And there's a balance here, right? And some of it you have to gauge the kind of relationship you have with that other accounting professional. You don't want to, bug them so much that you're annoying. At the same time, you want to do it often enough that they don't forget about you. So if you don't know them very well, maybe you just met them at some networking event or elsewhere, and you struck up conversation, and they agreed, hey, you know what, I might have some referrals for you. Maybe once a month is good enough to kind of touch base. On the other side, if it's somebody that you do know well, then it might make sense, and it may be, that you'll realize this is, again, you have to kind of figure this out for yourself, what's annoying and what's not. But somebody that you know better, you can probably reach out to a little bit more often than once a month, but probably not less than once a month. That's where people are like, then you reach out 6 months later, like, hey, you got any referrals? They're like, who are you, right? So again, there's a balance there, and just use common sense. That's really what that comes down to, right? You never want to be annoying, but you want to make sure that they don't forget about you. By the way, that's why when I send my emails out every week, a little different kind of purpose behind this, although it has certainly generated referrals over the years when I send out my weekly email. But the reason I do it weekly and not monthly like a lot of people do is for the exact same reason, that if I just do it monthly, people kind of forget. You actually get more people opting out when you send an email once a month versus sending it weekly. And what happened to me, of course, which I expected when I started doing it with that frequency, was a lot of people opted out because a lot of people didn't want to hear from me once a week. And the truth is, that was perfectly fine. I didn't want them on my email list if they're not interested in hearing from me that often. Now, this is a really, really important principle and point to consider is, if you do, let's say, start reaching out to somebody once a month and they're clearly annoyed, then stop. Leave them alone. They're not a good referral source. What you're looking for are people who are motivated to refer you clients, not people who are going to get annoyed by your outreach. Out of sight is out of mind, and out of mind is out of money, honey. Remember that. It's an important way to remember that it is important for you to proactively stay in touch with people, but make sure it's with the right people, not people who are, frankly, for lack of a better way to put it, a waste of time. Next. Pick a niche and start creating content. Now, I already talked about picking a niche, especially when it comes to wanting to get referrals from other accounting and bookkeeping professionals. And let's let me just address the elephant in the room when I mention this topic. Let's say you're brand new and just starting out, and so you haven't had a chance to evaluate what niche you love. Well, then you actually have a niche already, which is your niche is going to be those really small micro businesses that are just starting out. They can't afford the rates of the more experienced accounting and bookkeeping professionals out there. So that's what you ask them for when you're asking them for referrals. You say, look, I'm just getting started out. I'm flying under the radar. I'm charging very low rates so I can get the experience. So if you get potential clients, prospects in the door who are just too new new, too small, can't afford you, please send them my way. I will take care of them because I'll get the experience that I need in exchange for charging very low rates that they can afford. So you've literally carved out a niche without even realizing it by putting yourself in that position of, hey, I'm brand new, I'm just starting out, I don't have the experience yet. Great, that's your niche. I just gave it to you. I just defined it for you. Now, once you've defined a niche, whether it's that or let's say you've had some experience or for whatever reason you just know this is what I'm going into. And mind you, a lot of people starting out do know right away what they want to specialize in. I had a guy in 97 and up last year at one point. I haven't heard from him in a while now. I hope he's okay. But he was an insurance adjuster. And so he came into bookkeeping looking specifically to build a bookkeeping practice around serving other insurance adjusters because he could see from the experience he had working in that field that there was a great need for this. So there's lots of ways that you can carve out a niche, and certainly many of them include, starting right from the get-go, knowing exactly what you want to specialize in. But like I said, if you don't know because you don't have the experience yet and you didn't come from a place that kind of dictates what your specialization is going to be, then I told you that means that's what your specialization is on other brand new businesses who can't afford the more experienced professionals' rates. Now, the other part of this, right, is besides picking a niche, is start creating content. Now, I know a lot of you cringe when you say that, and for a lot of years, working with a lot of bookkeepers and accountants, I've sort of allowed them to cringe and say, I'm not going to create content, it's just not my thing. Well, if you want what I have, then you have to be willing to do what I've done, right? So if you're coming to me and saying, Seth, I would like your help in learning how to get new clients, this is the experience I can pass along. Now, mind you, and I'll throw in a shameless plug here, I have 2 courses, either of which on their own would probably be enough. Both of which together, though, they're each priced at, I think, $197. So if you were to spend just $400 on these courses, I give you literally everything you need to know how to create content in all the different forms. You're going to learn how to use Snagit to take screenshots so you can create like a little digital textbook in a Google document that you can then either copy and paste into whatever blog platform you're using or share it as a Google Doc if you don't even want to learn how to actually run a blog, which you should do. But the bottom line is, if you want what I've got, you've got to be willing to do what I've done, and that means creating content. And I've got resources that will teach you how to do everything from, like I said, screenshots in Snagit to recording videos in Camtasia, how to edit those videos, how to get them all published online, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. I've got lots of resources for you on that. So I'm no longer accepting the excuse of I don't want to create content, it's not my thing. Because also there are different forums. So I don't want to put my face on camera, I'm too shy or whatever. Fine. Then just write a blog. Use the screenshot tools that you have available to you to put together a tutorial. That alone is more than plenty to attract people. Some people, sometimes I don't even want to watch a video to learn something because I just want quiet. I don't want to have to put a headset on to listen to the audio for a video, and I don't want it to disturb somebody else who's in the room with me by not using a headset. So sometimes I actually prefer myself to have something that I can just read and follow along with some screenshots. So you've got blogs. You've got a weekly email like I send out. Just make sure you send valuable tips. If you just send crappy promotions about what events you have coming up, nobody cares. Nobody's going to read it, right? So you want to share like I share. If you read my email every week, you'll see I share from the heart what's going on, my journey as an entrepreneur. I get vulnerable. I share my struggles. I show you that I'm human because I am. And I find that does the best job of getting people to relate and creating messages that resonate with people so that I do get people engaged. I get people replying almost every week to my emails, letting me know how much they appreciate them. Sometimes I just get random emails from people just saying how much they appreciate reading my emails every week. Imagine most people do not look forward to reading somebody's marketing email, but mine aren't really marketing emails, and that's kind of the secret, right? Don't send marketing emails. Send a real heart-to-heart message from you to the person who might potentially be sitting across from you at a desk or in a coffee shop, and share with them the way you would share with somebody intimately about what you're experiencing, what's going on, what have you learned, what mistakes have you made. Be honest, be open, get vulnerable, be courageous, okay? Send a weekly email. You don't have to show your face. Do a podcast, right? Now, a podcast, I do the Guide to the Galaxy podcast, and I do record the videos, and I do put the videos up on YouTube, but you don't have to. It's a podcast. You can absolutely you can use Zoom to record it. In one of those courses I mentioned, I go over this. You can strip out the audio file, and you can send that to a service like rev.com for a transcript or whatever you want to do there, and then you just upload it to whatever podcasting platform you want to use to share your podcast. Podcasts are a great way to build an audience. It takes some time. I've read some articles as I started the Guide to the Galaxy podcast that suggested that it takes a good year of consistent momentum, publishing an episode every week and so on. It takes a good year, to really build momentum and build, an audience of listeners who regularly listen to and look for your podcast episodes. So with that one, you got to be patient, but it's worth it. It's not the solution if you need clients now, but it's worth it. Of course, an online community. So many ways to do this: Slack, Facebook group, Discord. There's no shortage of tools out there that you can use to create a community, which is just a way of inviting people to come and share with you and invite them to ask you questions that you can answer based on whatever expertise you have to share. Obviously, the more experience you get, the easier it becomes to do something like this. The main thing is you have to be courageous enough to feel that, nothing can stump you, or be courageous enough to be honest enough to tell people when you don't have the experience or don't have the answer, instead of trying to make one up, because that's going to work against you in the long run. Just be honest with people and say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question. Does anybody else in the group know? And what happens over time, like I have people in 97 and up where questions come up, and I know there are certain people, I might even have the answer, I might have some experience with it, but I often know there's somebody else in the group who's got more experience, and so I'll tag them in. And I'll say, hey, Greg, can you answer this for me? I know you've worked with construction companies before, that kind of thing. So the most important thing in there, if you're going to build a community, is don't try and bullshit people. Be honest about what you know, and more importantly, be honest about what you don't know. People will respect that. What else? Of course, a YouTube channel. Right? I would be remiss if I didn't encourage you to start a YouTube channel. Of course, that means you'll be making videos and showing your face. You don't have to show your face. You can make videos like I do in a screencast format, just sharing your screen, and not have your, the Camtasia will shoot your video. You can actually turn the camera off when you're recording, or even if you have the camera turned on, you can choose to, just not include that video feed in your final output in Camtasia. Very easy to do to make that transparent so it effectively goes away. But you can do screen recordings, illustrating how to do something. I'll give you a simple one that you can do. Do a short video on how to turn on classes and locations in QuickBooks Online, right? That could be a really quick, easy, short video tutorial that probably would get a lot of traffic. Even though others have done it before, it doesn't matter. That's another question that comes up a lot, is why would I do something that you've already covered, for example? And my answer to you very quickly and simply is, you'll have a different audience than me. And there are people who hate my content. They say I talk too fast. But look at my YouTube channel. If you go through some of the comments in some of my videos, you'll find exactly why some people don't like me or don't like my style of teaching. Of course, hopefully I have many more that do appreciate my style than don't. But the point is, not everybody's going to love my style, and there are going to be people who hate my style but might love yours. So just because somebody else has done it is not a reason not to do it. You should definitely do it. And something quick and simple like that could actually generate a lot of views on YouTube, because it's short and sweet. You're not holding people hostage. A lot of my videos are like 10, 20 minutes. That's another thing. If you do 3 to 5 minute videos, these days YouTube considers that to be more likely spammy or promotional in nature. But if your video proves to not be spammy and it's strictly just how to do X in QuickBooks Online, and it just didn't need more than 3 to 5 minutes to cover it, then I think you'll do well with stuff like that in the long run. So a YouTube channel. Here's what not to do. I've had people reach out to me on Facebook specifically and say, hey, I'm struggling here. I can't get any clients to get started on. I have some experience. I know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm not getting any clients. And I'll have the conversation with them, and I'll say, well, you got to get engaged. Go into the Facebook groups. And they'll assure me they're doing all of that. But then in a few cases, I've taken a closer look and started just paying attention, because these are people who obviously are following me. And I've seen what they're doing, and I'll tell you what they're doing, which, with the best of intentions, it's the wrong way. Or it's not enough. Maybe that's a better way to put it. But here's what I'm getting at. There are people I've noticed that they'll like everything I put out there, and they'll always comment on things, but their comments, they're complimentary, which is really nice, of course, and I love that, but they don't really add value to the conversation, right? So if you're going to hope that by participating in communities online, you want to generate interest, referrals, especially if you're in an accounting group, and your hope is, as I referenced earlier, to make it clear that you specialize in something that not every other accountant does, so that people will think of you when it comes time to refer you by simply saying, hey, great post, or I love this, or thank you so much. Again, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to accomplish what you're hoping to accomplish. Maybe start with that, but then go on and share something of value, share your own experience. When you write these comments online, you're not going to stand out. You're going to be invisible to people unless you do something that makes you stand out. And the only way to do that is to share something specific, something based on your experience. Or if you really did like something, then share what your takeaway was. Go a step further, go deeper, and explain to people, hey, here's what I liked about this. Hey, you know what? I'm starting to work with e-commerce clients right now, and this tip really helped me because I'm going to do this, this, and that on all of my clients right now, right? So, in other words, go deeper, get more specific, be more detailed. Don't just like things and compliment people. Like I said, it's nice, but it's not going to do what you're hoping it's going to do. And that's probably why, if you're one of those people who feels like you're commenting online and participating a lot and still not getting clients, that's probably why. You're probably not getting deep enough and really sharing and exposing enough about yourself to, A, make yourself memorable. Marketing is all about creating a memory, about making sure that somebody remembers you. So first of all, you have to share enough detailed information to make you memorable, to make your comment memorable. And two, back of that detailed information needs to somehow point to what you're an expert in or what you're trying to learn to be an expert in. The more you do that, the more you participate in and divulge that level of detail whenever you do, the more people are going to start to recognize, oh, this is that guy who's trying to get e-commerce clients. And then the next time somebody has a prospect that's an e-commerce company and they don't want to take it on, you'll be the one that's top of mind because they'll remember that guy or that woman who's always commenting about e-commerce stuff, right? They may not even remember that you said you were just starting out, and it's not a bad thing to say that you are. It's a good thing to say, hey, I'm just getting started and I'm trying to learn about e-commerce, so I'm really glad that you shared this video with me because it helped me learn. But again, keep going. Don't stop there. Don't stop it. It helped me learn. What did it help you learn? How are you going to use that? How are you going to put that into action? Because I guarantee you, getting that specific and detailed in your comment is going to be, again, much more memorable than just saying, hey, I loved what you shared. But B, it's also going to help somebody else. Like seeing what you said, what your takeaway was, is going to trigger inspiration in somebody else's mind when they're reading your comment and they'll say, oh yeah, he's right. You know what? That's a great idea. I got to do that. Right? So be detailed, be specific, go deep. Okay? So quick recap on how to get bookkeeping clients. Number one, look at the ones who get lots of referrals. It's because they do a bang-up job with the clients they get, and they have a specific and proactive process around identifying what that client's goals are, and then a year or so later, confirming with the client that you've accomplished those things and then raising the bar. You do that for every one of your clients who comes in the door, you'll get lots of referrals from your existing clients. Quick funny side story on that. The one time I learned why I wasn't getting referrals from a client who was clearly very happy with me, he admitted this to me in a conversation we had. He was afraid if he started referring me clients, my attention would be taken off of him. And he was just being honest with me. But I'll tell you what I told him along those lines, and I was being honest with him. I said, actually, the opposite is probably true. Because the more of a baseline I can build with lots of clients paying me monthly, the more sort of leverage I have. I have bookkeepers working for me who do the bookkeeping work. So having that extra revenue coming in actually frees up more of my time so that I can focus even more on a client, not less. In other words, it'll for me, in my case, I explained to him why getting those referrals would have the opposite effect of what he was concerned about. So that's the other thing, is always be prepared for the kinds of objections that you're going to get. And really for me, it was just thinking on my feet really and saying to him why, in fact, it would have helped rather than hurt him to send me referrals. I never did get a referral from him. But he did give me a really nice little interview that I have on the landing page for my e-commerce course. So he did give me that. So be aware of that. You may have clients that are afraid to give you referrals because they're afraid that you'll be distracted and won't pay enough attention to them. And, you can kind of ask them about that. And if that turns out to be one of their concerns, then alleviate those concerns. Explain to them why not only won't it distract you, but if anything, it will help you pay more attention. If nothing else, just the appreciation you'll have for the fact that they've referred you all this business is going to make them number one priority in your mind, right? So, So that's the number one tip on how to get bookkeeping clients, is just do a bang-up job for the clients that you get. Okay, next, network with professionals who aren't accountants and bookkeepers, because they're the ones who are going to need you, and they're more likely to know other people who need you. So even if they don't actually need your services, they'll refer you people. And by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, but when we're in this part, really any of these parts, but especially when you're dealing with other business owners, a lot of you will make the mistake of saying, hey, do you need bookkeeping help? Right? And here's why asking that question phrased that way is a mistake. Again, people are up to their eyeballs. They're not going to necessarily stop and slow down and think, oh my God, what does this person need? Right? They're going to think really quick and say, no, I'm good. And they're going to say, no, thank you, I'm good. On the other hand, if you say, do you know anyone who needs bookkeeping help? That's going to make them stop and think, well, I don't need bookkeeping help, but wait, that guy, Jim I talked to the other day, he was saying something about how he's not too happy with his balance sheet reports that he's looking at or whatever, right? So in other words, it's going to change the way that the person you're talking to thinks about how to answer your question, and encourage them not just to think of themselves, but to think of anyone else who might need help. And bottom line, even after that conversation happens, you've kind of you planted the seed in their mind that if they do run across somebody soon enough before they forget about you, which goes back to why it's important to keep in touch, they'll remember you and they'll send the referrals your way. They'll remember to send the referrals to you. So ask them specifically, do you know anyone who might need help with their bookkeeping? So that's what you do when you're in the environment with other business owners, right? When you're talking to other accounting professionals, probably not the most appropriate question to ask. That's where your focus is going to shift on making sure that these other accounting professionals are very clear on what you specialize in, even if what that means is you specialize in those brand new micro businesses that can't afford their services because they're too new and you're so new that you can afford to charge them the kind of rates that they can afford. So without having a niche because you don't have the experience yet, that becomes your niche. And then if you go beyond that, or if you're already past that to the point where you have formed a niche, as in I know exactly what industry I want to serve or what group of businesses, because it's not always about industry when you're choosing a niche. It could be startups or something like that. So once you've identified that, bottom line, when you're talking to other accounting professionals, make sure that you make them very clear on what you're specializing in, what your specialty is. Like I said before, the example, e-commerce clients with QuickBooks Online, right? You want to make sure that you can sort of brand in their minds, right? And I'm using that brand on a couple of levels here, but you want it branded into their minds that you're the guy or you're the woman who does e-commerce and QuickBooks Online, right? Make sure that's explicitly clear. That's the power, by the way, of being specific and not trying to do too many different things, not trying to offer services with too many different kinds of software. When you can get that specific, it's much easier for people to remember when they run across somebody who needs your exact combination of expertise. So that's the accountant example. Next, pick a niche and start creating content. I don't care what form it takes on, but like I said, I'm no longer accepting the excuse that that you can't create content. And finally, what not to do. Again, it's nice to be complimentary, but if you stop there, you're not going to get anybody's attention. You're going to be invisible. You're going to be vanilla. So stand out when you're participating in groups online by going deep and giving lots and lots of specific details about who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, and why you like the particular person's comment or tip or what have you. That's how you really inject yourself into the conversation. By just liking things and saying it was great, it's nice, like I said, but it's not going to get you what you're looking for in terms of how to get bookkeeping clients. That's it, my friends. That's my 2 cents or 10 cents worth on how to get bookkeeping clients. As always, I hope you learned something here. I hope you had some fun along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the galaxy.